Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.
Hello, and welcome to Eat, Drink, DFW, the podcast from the Dallas Morning News food team. Each week, we take a look at food and drink trends in North Texas, talk about restaurants in Dallas-Fort Worth, learn some new recipes, and sometimes even get tips from you, our listeners. I'm Anna Butler, the Dallas Morning News' food editor. Change is afoot once again, hitting a beloved spot in one of Dallas's hottest neighborhoods. And later, we'll share the reservation apps you've just got to have right now. That's all coming up right after this.
Central Market is really into food. Like when we say cheese, it's in 12 languages into food. Butchers, bakers, and sushi roll makers into food. We're talking so obsessive about quality you can shop blindfolded into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then let us turn your shopping list into a treasure map. Get inspired, get adventurous, or just get a chef-made dinner when you've got more taste buds than time. No place makes every meal more amazing like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
For the latest food and restaurant news in Dallas-Fort Worth, visit dallasnews.com/food. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. Today, I am joined by our food writers Sarah Blaskovich and Imelda Garcia. Sarah, we need to talk about Chuy's.
We do need to talk about Chuy's. After 32 years serving queso and margaritas and those delicious enchiladas, Chuy's Tex-Mex in Dallas closed after dinner last week on McKinney Avenue near Knox Street. Now, it's okay, everybody. You don't need to be worried. Chuy's is not gone. The restaurant will move and reopen Monday, April 28th in a new neighborhood. Chuy's is now an East Dallas resident, not a Knox Street resident.
I also feel like it's so fitting that it's going into the old Desert Racer space because the space to me feels so Chuy's.
Yes, it really does. And I have taken a tour of it. It's not quite open yet, but I did get to see it. And they totally Chewified this restaurant. It has the hubcaps hanging in the ceiling. It's got these brightly colored fish that an artist makes in Mexico. And they have dozens, if not hundreds of them in every Chuy's restaurant. And so, of course, I'm standing there in the bar asking them about the fish. And I say, well, how many of those do you think you have?
1,000 for sure.
It's a really good guess. There's 876 of these wooden fish, each hanging separately from like a piece of fishing wire from the ceiling. I got to give a hug to whoever hung that art. They look really cool. And that's a whole lot of hanging.
Are there as many Elvises as there are fish?
No, good question. I only spotted one Elvis near the building. And Anna, you're referring to the Elvis fountain that used to be kind of in that indoor-outdoor area of the old Chuy's. It has been refurbished. Elvis is looking especially like he maybe got some blush and some Botox. And he has been put on the patio of new Chuy's. This place has a massive patio. It's 10,000 square feet. And so Elvis is right off to the side when you walk in.
Maybe they'll put up one of those signs like they did at Birdie's that's like, kids can't play over here.
Well, it's funny that you say that. Elvis is being turned back into a fountain after he was not a fountain for a while because people kept getting in the water at the old Chuy's. This is what the GM told me. That's right. I didn't ask whether they were children or adults getting into the water, and that would have really been a good one to ask, but they are turning him back into a fountain. And so I do want to say out loud that if you're an adult or a child, neither of you are supposed to get in the new Elvis fountain.
I just want to know if they are going to serve their amazing tres leches cake.
Yes, they are. And that's an important question, Imelda. Will this Chuy's serve the same food that the other ones do? Yes, it will. They have more than 100 Chuy's across the United States now, which is fun because when Chuy's opened in Dallas, it was Chuy's number 3 and Chuy's started in Austin. So a lot has happened for this restaurant in, 40 years or so. And Dallas has been a big part of its history. And they will have the Chicka Chicka Boom Boom enchiladas and the big as yo face burritos. And of course, that delicious queso. They've got great margaritas. My favorite drink there is the New Mexican martini, which is kind of a spicy margarita-like thing where you pour your own servings into a tiny little martini glass. I thought that this drink was sort of special to me and whoever was sitting at my table. And as it turns out, it's the best-selling cocktail on all of Chuy's menu in Dallas. So secrets out on the New Mexican martini, even though I thought it was mine.
I've been wondering as of late how much Darden Group's acquisition of Chuy's might change its fabric. And it doesn't actually feel like it's changed all that much. But that's because I think so many things have actually changed in the last 10 to 15 years with Chuy's as they streamlined their menu for its expansion. And they've done things I'll never forgive. They took away the stuffed chicken sopapilla.
Wait, what's that?
It was a sopapilla, but stuffed with chicken. It was a savory sopapilla.
Wait, I don't know.
And so you would do it with the deluxe tomatillo salsa, shredded chicken underneath a sopapilla, and then with beans under it too. And it was so good. I would get a side of their ranchero to go with it. Absolutely fantastic. They also removed one of the harder to make salsas and then just essentially swapped it with that kind of like ground down pico.
Yeah.
I loved that salsa because it had chunks of carrots in it.
That's a surprise in a salsa.
I mean, I still go, obviously. I get a Mexican martini when I do go. I just don't get what I actually want because they don't make it anymore.
We could have a whole podcast about the dishes at restaurants that don't exist anymore.
I have to go back to the Mexican martini. This is a sacrilege for me. I have never tried a Mexican martini.
This one's called a new Mexican martini.
Oh.
And so it is a spicy margarita.
Imelda, you found a really sweet Colombian restaurant in Allen. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, and this was a finding that I'd made in Instagram. I'm scrolling all the time, and I found this beautiful restaurant. And yeah, it's really sweet because they use a lot of their grandmother's recipes to make the food. And this is called Curuba Colombian Kitchen. This is property of Leo and Kelly Vargas. Kelly is the executive chef, and she has had a long career here in the U.S. They are from Bogota, and they sell a lot of traditional Colombian dishes, but you know what? They have a twist to make them Texan.
I like this idea.
For example, they have this appetizer. It's called desgranado. It's like corn, but they added brisket. So they made it Texan,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful place and small place. They only have 6 tables. So they want to expand, of course. This is their goal.
This quinoa salad with feta and grapes and caramelized nuts looks really yummy.
Yeah, they made a salsa that Leo's mother made. Every dish has a story. So it's a love letter to Colombian grandmothers.
We have had some beautiful days lately, and there is a new rooftop that just opened.
Yes, if weather allows, I think people should set their maps to Lower Greenville, where Via Triozzi now has a new terrazza. How do you say that in Italian?
In Spanish, it's terraza.
Oh, there we go. Imelda, I'm so glad you're here.
So you can walk from Chuy's.
Correct.
Literally, you could walk from Chuy's, take a block north on Greenville, great point, and head up the stairs at Via Triozzi to what I'm going to call their patio.
Their flying patio.
Yes, because I can't say terrazza like Imelda does. This Italian restaurant we've talked about before, and if you haven't been to Via Triozzi for Italian food downstairs, I highly recommend it. Upstairs at this new rooftop patio, first of all, you get beautiful views of Greenville Avenue if the weather is nice. But second, you get Italian snacks and spritzes. So the owner, Lee Hutchinson, spent some time studying in Italy, learning to cook. She also comes from an Italian family. And the rooftop at Via Triozzi, she says she wants it to feel kind of like Cinque Terre, which is a coastal town in Italy. She just wants to transport people into a culture by eating dishes and drinking cocktails that she enjoyed in Italy.
And you can book a cabana.
You can book a cabana. For my first time, I'm just going to go and get a table, which doesn't cost anything. You do want a reservation for dinner. You don't necessarily need a reservation to go upstairs.
You can read about all these restaurants by visiting dallasnews.com/food. Sarah, you did just stop into Evelyn.
Yes, one more restaurant to add. We've talked about Evelyn as a flashy new steakhouse in the Dallas Design District. I spent 4 or 5 hours there one Friday night. It was my husband's birthday, and we went for drinks and then dinner, and we had a really good time. This place is super flashy. It can be pricey if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be, which is interesting to me. You could also just go to the bar, grab a drink, and have dinner elsewhere, or grab a drink and dance a little bit. It was kind of one of those spots where you could have one too many and enjoy yourself on the dance floor, or be like us and sit in chairs and watch other people do that, which is just as fun depending on who you are. But Evelyn is kind of one of those restaurants that I find people in Dallas keep talking about. And so I'm glad I got to go inside, and I did like it and thought the decor was beautiful. The food was pretty good. The drinks were excellent.
Did you get the cheesesteak tower? Because that's really all I care about.
So we got the cheesesteak, bites served on a plate, not on a tower, because you can get them in the restaurant or you can get a tower in the bar.
This just doesn't feel authentic, and I'm disappointed in you and Chase.
The Wagyu bites perhaps are better on a tower, tiered with piles of fries atop it, perhaps. We were enjoying a pretty involved steak dinner, and so it was but one of the many courses that we had. A tower might have been too much.
Everything in moderation.
It's not a moderation place.
Thanks, Sarah. If you're eating at new restaurants around town, we want to know about it. So please email us and tell us about them at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're diving into the Great Reservations race.
Central Market is really into food, like fish flown in so fresh it still has jet lag into food. Our sourdough starter has been around since grunge was a thing into food. We're talking more prime cuts than a greatest hits album into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then we're the HQ for you, whether you're a make every recipe in the cookbook foodie or a my favorite recipe is reheat type who just digs the delectable. No place makes every day more delicious like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
Welcome back. We're about to get into the must-have reservation apps, but first, we're currently collecting your favorite summer recipes. If you have an easy go-to dinner or cocktail recipe that gets you through the summer months, we want to hear about it. So send it to eatdrink@dallasnews.com, and we might even call and use you on the podcast. Speaking of which, Sarah, you got an email from a reader.
Yes. Our new friend Gary has a conundrum, and I thought I would read his email and then see what ideas you have for him. He said, my wife and I took our daughter and grandkids to Texas Roadhouse for her birthday in Prosper. We showed up at 5:30 p.m. and they told us it would be 15 minutes to get seated. It was more like 30 or so minutes. And when my wife asked about our table, she was told that people are making reservations online and they're ahead of us. I was kind of shocked by this because we checked in when we got there and we were told we had to wait. There were a few times when the hosts called out names and nobody came forward. Anyway, what's the rule or guidelines when it comes to online reservations versus people walking in?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's a great question, but here's what I would say. If you have the option to make a reservation, because typically a restaurant is going to honor that.
Yes, and those of us who make a lot of online reservations are pretty used to this, but I will say the culture around making reservations has changed wildly in the past decade or more. You know, I do think that some folks would just show up to a chain restaurant and wait. Now, Anna, you and I don't want to wait even 10 minutes. I want to plan ahead and then I want to walk in and sit down. And it doesn't always work that perfectly, but we have become so accustomed to making reservations almost all the time that we almost never leave it to chance.
Look, I had a visitor from abroad, and when they come here, you want them to try Tex-Mex,
Yeah.
So I took them to Mariano's, and I tried to make a reservation also. They have no reservations online, and when I called, they told me, we only take reservations if your party is 10 or more. So you can just walk in. We went to the restaurant, and we wait more than an hour for our table. And you know what? We were missing margarita per hour, so...
Well, I mean, I'll humbly say that you can also stand and drink margaritas while you wait on your table. That's the only thing that makes waiting better.
So when it comes to actually making these online reservations, what are the apps that people need to have?
Yes, I think there are 3 or 4 that you should just download to your phone. If you don't already have them, then right at your fingertips in seconds, you can make reservations in advance for the places where you don't want to wait. OpenTable is probably the biggest one. Most restaurants that offer reservations at all are on OpenTable. The second one I would say is Resy. So Resy is newer, and for a time at least, Resy seemed to host the newer, higher end restaurants coming to Dallas. I can't say if that's true for other cities, but that's what was happening in Dallas. And Resy is spelled R-E-S-Y. You need this app on your phone if you're going to be eating at many of the great restaurants in Dallas. Then there's Tock. Tock is used by all kinds of restaurants, but more specifically, often for tasting menus or for menus that you need to pay for in advance. So Tock is one of those that will take your credit card, as will several other of these, but it'll take your credit card number and charge you for that 4-person dinner or charge you for that $150 a plate tasting menu in advance. Some of our Michelin-starred restaurants in Texas are using Tock. And then another one that I've seen sometimes is 7 Rooms, which is very popular in Vegas. And I sort of equate with like a club restaurant hybrid, although I think lots of different companies use 7 Rooms.
Yeah, there's a fascinating movement in the Northeast right now because Resy was the hot one.
Yeah.
But all the new hot restaurants are actually now to be found on Open Table, as well as a lot of the classic restaurants. There's a phenomenon behind it that came about with the fact that Resi essentially also had to grow in order to grow revenue. And so it had this principle at first that we are only going to have the most elite new restaurants, the hottest restaurants only. Well, they started, broadening that pool a little bit. And so that exclusivity wasn't really there anymore. They were also acquired by American Express. And so then there was a lot of preferential treatment towards Amex users only, which rubbed people the wrong way. Open Table has since very openly talked about recruiting restaurants again. This is mainly probably a fees game on the other side for restaurants because Resi also used to be less expensive for restaurants to use. And Open Table was charging an acquisition fee per head. Open Table has since also garnered a partnership with Visa. And so it's just funny to watch people migrate because there was almost like a Chuy factor with Open Table for a while there. And now they're doing a good job of wooing restaurants back. And so you'll see this in New York, Philly, which is, if you haven't been, one of the best food cities in the world, because the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America in upstate New York, a lot of the people don't actually want to go to Manhattan afterwards. They go to Philly.
That's super interesting to me, Anna, all the business stuff behind this, because from a consumer facing perspective, we're using these apps in order to make our lives a little bit easier. But you also want to think about it on the opposite direction. Restaurants have to use them to make their life easier too, but restaurants pay to use these services. That's why you might see a restaurant hopping from one to the other if they get a better deal. It reminds me a little bit of why a restaurant might be on Uber Eats but not DoorDash. It's a business relationship there. One great thing for users is, at least right now, it's free to use these apps. So while restaurants pay for them, we don't.
That is, unless you sign up for one of the reservations that's like, hey, if you don't cancel this in time, you're going to pay for it.
The other thing I'm hearing from restaurateurs is that people will make reservations willy-nilly and then no-show a lot. And I'd like to say out loud that that's not the right thing to do. Stuff happens sometimes, where you can't make it or you're late or somebody's sick. But for the most part, if you make a reservation, you're also taking up the space. And the right thing to do is to show up.
And if you are dropping your reservation, please call me. I'm going to take it. Yeah, all the time.
And that's all the time we have for today. And don't forget, email us your summer recipes at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. Please make sure you're following Eat Drink DFW wherever you find podcasts so you never miss an episode. Special thanks to our producer, Julie Fisk. For the news, I'm Anna Butler. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.